The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like they always did, but that morning they felt heavier. I sat at the long conference table in the Streamline Dynamics headquarters outside Denver, my fingers tracing the edge of my laptop lid. Jordan Hale, the new VP of Innovation who'd parachuted in from a flashy Bay Area startup 3 months earlier, stood at the front with his perfectly tailored blazer and that smug half-smile. He clapped his hands once. Sharp and performative. "All right, team. Let's disrupt some legacy mindsets today." The words landed like a slap. He wasn't talking abstractly. His eyes locked on me across the table. At 6 feet 1 inch. With calloused hands from years of late-night coding sessions and a face lined from 2 divorces and too many all-nighters, I was the visible symbol of everything he wanted to sweep away. "Some people are still married to frameworks that belong in a museum," Jordan continued, gesturing at the slides behind him. "If the direction doesn't excite you, the exit's right there. No hard feelings." He pointed straight at the door, the gesture theatrical, like he was on a TED stage instead of our weekly dev sync. 24 years. I joined when Streamline was just Victor Lang and a handful of engineers in a rented warehouse near the old rail yards. I architected the core engine that automated supply chain routing for major logistics clients, the system that scaled us from startup scrappiness to a 9-figure valuation. I'd optimized algorithms that saved clients millions, written the foundational logic trees that still hummed under every deployment. And now, in front of the whole team, I was reduced to legacy thinking. No one spoke. Laptops stayed open, eyes glued to screens. I felt the weight of those silent stares. My chest tightened, not with rage exactly, but with the hollow clarity that comes when you finally see the writing on the wall. I closed the laptop lid with a soft click. That sound echoed louder in my mind than any shout could. No rant. No speech. I stood, gathered my things without hurry, and walked out. The hallway glass reflected my face back at me, calm on the surface, but something ancient and unbreakable shifting underneath. They thought they'd dismissed an old dog. What they'd actually done was free the one person who still controlled the leash. I didn't take the coffee mug or the framed "Teamwork Makes the Dream Work" plaque from 2011. The only thing I carried was a battered accordion folder from the back of my drawer, smelling faintly of toner and old takeout receipts. Inside were the breadcrumbs, early schematics, change logs with my annotations, emails from Victor himself praising the engine I'd built solo during those frantic nights in 2005. The provisional patent application I'd filed quietly years ago, never properly transferred because "we'll handle legal after the next round," was always the answer. I'd offered, multiple times, over beers in Atlanta during a power outage, in quarterly reviews, even in a candid moment after Victor's first big exit. Always deflected. Now that folder felt like justice wrapped in plain manila. Outside, the Colorado air hit me with pine and exhaust. I didn't head straight home to my quiet apartment in Aurora. Instead, I drove to a classic diner off I-25, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox still spinning Johnny Cash. I slid into a corner, ordered black coffee and eggs I wouldn't touch, and opened the folder under the warm yellow light. My phone stayed in my pocket. No LinkedIn post. No bitter text to the team. Just the quiet resolve settling in my bones. Flashbacks came unbidden. The early days when Victor and I worked shoulder to shoulder on folding tables, debugging code while sharing warm beers from the mini fridge. The pride when our first major client signed because the system never missed a routing optimization. The slow erosion as the company grew. Layers of management distancing me from decisions. Until Jordan arrived with his buzzwords and neck tattoo of interlocking gears, treating my life's work like outdated software to be deprecated. I logged into the USBTO portal with a password tied to memories of better times. The provisional had lingered through legal loopholes and extensions I had maintained silently. One final submission. The click of the submit button felt like the scalpel completing a long-delayed surgery.
Clean.
Inevitable. No fanfare. Back home that evening, the house felt emptier than usual. I poured a single bourbon, sat by the window watching the front range fade into dusk, and let the silence wrap around me. Jordan was probably still in the glass-walled pod, high-fiving his new hires over kombucha and pizza, congratulating himself on cleaning house. He had no idea the foundation he'd mocked was about to shift beneath him. Days blurred after I walked out. I spent them in quiet routines, morning runs along the Platte River Trail, fixing small projects around the house, avoiding the urge to check work emails. The folder stayed on my desk like a loaded promise. Then came the launch of their Gen 5 automation suite, the one they'd hyped for months as revolutionary. Press releases called it AI-enhanced,
Self-optimizing.
the future of logistics. What it really was, my logic trees repackaged with a shiny interface and trendy labels. I watched from afar, sipping coffee in my kitchen, imagining the rollout in their gleaming offices. The demo went live on a Friday. Monday brought the first fracture. A junior compliance analyst spotted the mismatch in documentation, a USPTO number that pointed back to me as sole inventor and owner. Panic rippled quietly at first. An internal Slack flag that snowballed into closed-door meetings. By Tuesday afternoon, my inbox began to light up. Generic HR extensions. Then Jordan's direct line. Then unknown numbers. I let them ring, muting notifications as voicemails piled up. One from Jordan himself. "Hey Ryan, quick sync on the deployment? Appreciate your insight." Man, the fake camaraderie made me smile bitterly into my drink. After publicly labeling me obsolete. Now, man? Flashbacks returned stronger at night. I remembered Victor's late-night email from 2005. "This engine you're building is the heart of everything." I'd offered the IP transfer then. He waved it off. Too focused on growth. Over the years, the assumption calcified. Everyone acted like the company owned it by default. No formal assignment. No paperwork. Just trust and amnesia. On the third day, Victor himself called. I let it ring twice before picking up on the third. His voice was strained, the polished chairman tone cracking. "Ryan, what the hell is this USPTO listing?" I let silence stretch, then answered evenly. "Because I built it. And I always owned it. I offered to transfer it years ago. You all had other priorities." He inhaled sharply. I could picture him in his glass-walled office, overlooking the Rockies. Legal team, hovering. Jordan pacing in the background with sweat beading on his trendy shirt. The realization hit them like a freight train. Every deployment of Gen 5, every client contract relying on the core engine, was now a potential violation of federal IP law. Injunction risks. Fraud exposure. The empire built on my uncredited work teetered. I didn't gloat. Didn't threaten. I simply hung up after stating the facts, letting the weight sink in. That night, mediation requests arrived from high-end DC firms. Polite language masking desperation. They wanted to discuss licensing in good faith. I replied simply, "I'll meet." Jordan stays out of the room. Confirmation came within minutes. Jordan was sidelined. The negotiation happened in a downtown Denver high-rise conference room with panoramic mountain views and leather chairs that smelled of fresh anxiety. I arrived alone, folder in hand, no entourage. Victor sat with the general counsel, a junior associate scribbling notes, and a face etched with sleepless nights. I laid the folder down deliberately. "Let's be direct," I said. 7-figure upfront licensing fee. Wired within 72 hours. Retroactive royalties adjusted for inflation from first commercial use. Public attribution in all marketing and product interfaces as original architect and inventor. A company-wide memo from you personally acknowledging the oversight and crediting my foundational role. No euphemisms. Just the truth. The room went still. The GC blinked rapidly. Victor leaned forward, voice tight. You're not leaving much room. I met his eyes steadily. I did the work. You build on it without securing rights. Now you license the foundation you left out of the blueprints. It wasn't revenge. Revenge is loud and destructive. This was correction, reprogramming a system that had veered off course. They requested a recess. I stood by the window, watching clouds drift over the peaks, feeling the earned calm of someone who'd waited decades for this moment. They returned and signed. No smiles. No handshakes beyond the necessary. The GC asked quietly as I left. Why now? I turned. Because you forgot who laid the cornerstone. Sometimes the only reminder is an invoice. The memo dropped Wednesday morning like a controlled demolition. Effective immediately. Jordan Hale is no longer with the company. Surgical. Then the paragraph acknowledging the IP oversight. Crediting me fully. Translation: we got caught. We're paying. My phone confirmed the wire transfer shortly after, 7 figures with satisfying commas. Clean and overdue. I didn't celebrate publicly. Instead, I filed papers for my new LLC, Keller Core Systems.
Quiet.
Focused on independent consulting and custom optimizations for clients who valued the architect. Not the hype. Jordan's LinkedIn updated to open to work. Leaked photos showed him in a Palo Alto cafe, scrolling job boards with hollow eyes. The industry whispered. He fired the guy who wrote The Backbone. Weeks later, a major Chicago logistics client required proof of ownership for a 7-figure deal. Their legal team insisted on verified rights. Streamline had to come back to me, now legally separate for compliance sign-off. I reviewed the packet. Initialed the clause I'd embedded requiring perpetual attribution. Failure triggered automatic revocation. I signed, attached the badge crediting my work, and sent it back. Every user interface, every footer, every doc would now carry my name. One click could pull the license if they erased it. Sitting at my new desk with sunlight streaming through the blinds, I thumbed the signed contract and let the silence settle. The good kind. The kind earned through patience and precision. Next time someone forgets who built the core, a single click will remind them. The question lingers, in the rush for disruption. How many foundational builders are quietly holding the keys to the empires they helped create?